Hello. Alright, so next video. I will say ever since I was a kid, I like to be a problem solver. And maybe I was just simple. Maybe it was just like, but the problem of being a problem solver without knowing what problem to solve was difficult to understand because two ideas. Surface level and priorities. So a good metaphor for that is considering to become a lawyer out of the idea that you think you can analyze a very dire situation with factual evidence when a conflict arises. I don't know if you guys ever played any sort of like, I don't know if you guys in it. Man. When two opposing forces collide, there tends to be what people can actually go through. It's what you call the pressure situations. And in those pressure situations, when two forces collide that are good enough to collide, I guess, but sometimes just opposing, um, that you actually see what a real conflict is about. Like it's not something that you could just disprove or approve of. But as I grew up, I wasn't the best at studying. Mm-mm. I definitely wasn't looking to win arguments. Yeah, I was, but a big portion of it was actually just finding what's really true and fair for the long run. Like, what are you going to be your nuances? What are you going to be your tendencies? What are you going to be your consistencies? But as I grew up further down the line, um, I found out the lawyers of God in history, like way back in the day, persecute the one man trying to help them. Um, so that application can actually be provided with thought, reason, and sense for a lot of different people too. But it's not me wanting to, you know, advocate for the lawbreakers, but it's actually just trying to say that there are many difficulties when the closest people that have the right knowledge don't acknowledge um, what is to be not absolutely true, but what is to be something. Let's move on. Um, so, this is, of course, surface level and reaching priorities. Um, because I say, don't get me wrong, I still love how lawyers handle their business. And it should be taken into account laws are upheld for a very strong and foundational reason. Very, very strong reason. Um, you ever go try to do a whole bunch of good and you try to figure out what's the commonplace in that good, that like there are rules that you can hold from that. That's a difficult thing to do. That's a really difficult thing to do. To give rules to things when they're both really good, and to give things to people that you know you can't cut off their freedom even though you don't agree with them. Um, as very difficult. Very, 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 very difficult. But I think that's just what life is. But there's more to that than just life. But to cue the same stance, what makes priorities of a lawyer? Have you seen certain lawyer movies? Um, Just Mercy, The Judge, A Few Good Men, Marshall, The Lincoln Lawyer, Law and Order TV show, Chicago 7. Just to name a few. You've also heard the thought process. The higher you can pay a lawyer, the more you get away with. So I know movies aren't realistic in many sense, and if my heart doesn't exist in the money side, I take from the essence of what these lawyers do. What do? They fight for something. But therein lies the same question. What is the motivation for them? For me, it's almost appealing, but more so retroactively fitting to jump to the conclusion or to look at the end game when looking at big concepts or in heavy rationalizations and light rationalization. But that's where I'm kind of digressing. Light rationalization, I consider it to be better than heavy rationalization. But that's open to open discussion. And when it comes to that point, sometimes it's breaking the ice of the surface level, which I very like much do. Or say it's a tipping point, and or it's when it comes to that point. Sometimes it's breaking the wait, excuse me. I'm reading my thing wrong now. Or it's a smooth operator. The priorities of this individual practically exude, you know, especially further down the line. What I mean by that is like, let me clarify this a little bit more. So what I said is, for me, it's more appealing, but more so retroactively fitting to jump to the conclusion, to look at the end game when looking at big concepts and rationalizations. So you got a big picture, or you got somebody asks you a dire question. One of those questions like, "What would you rather do?" Or if you're in this position, or obviously you're gonna, or if you're in this scenario, you're gonna want to say like, "What does that look like at the end of the day?" Or what are your choices at the end of the day? Or you know, and so um, I think that service level, when it comes to that point, when you're trying to break the ice of the service level, or say it's at the tipping point, it's a smooth operator. The priorities of this individual practically exude, especially for their down line. I just think it's more so what you're really trying to be about uh, when you go through those things. Um, that's why I like the longevity of things. That's why I like those who can last in difficulties, their own personal journey, much longer than they thought originally. Um, so to go on, when one's priorities aren't shown on the surface, take the time to understand who that person is, and don't be fearful of speaking about odds without losing your mind. Um, so as one grows up, you consider the ways of what a good lifestyle is like, what to do and what not to do, how to keep yourself from trouble, how to get away with things, or to jump into trouble whenever you can, just because it's your nature. The hard part of writing has become easy for me because not the idea these words are supposed to be so precise. I think it would become even more so a delicate precision knowing these words fit into the surface level, but can dive much deeper into a foray of deficit. Is to be met by matching thoughts, wants, ideals, values, and rendering. If that makes any sense. Because it's I think it is really appealing when words become a form of intellect, and as well as not just being a form of intellect, but truly telling the maturation of your feelings. I really do enjoy that, and that's why I'm kind of talking about lawyership. That's kind of why I'm talking about service level and prioritization, because service level to me is very much a lot of times service level to me is like, you know, how smart you are, what your value is, what holds you. But like, man, I've been saying this in all these videos, but it's like there are so many smart people, intellectual people, but in like countless amount of fields. That's why it's like, what can you consider to be smart? I think that wave is really important for people to understand that like many groups, many people, um, yeah. So I think there are a lot of that service level does produce the idea like when you reach people, what can you talk about? What can you relate to? Um, how can you work with them? How can you be in relation to them? You know, all those things. Yeah. How can you help each other? Um, as far as like whether it's in communion or whether it's without a belief. Um, that surface level and prioritization, mm, if I were to actually be prioritizing exactly how I feel, I would tell you that there is an end, there is a result of what that looks like, you know, what uh, prioritization does to surface level and vice versa. Um, but that's why I said it's like, you know, it can be development that looks struggled and mightily that people consider like, oh, you got fake it till you make it. Um, and then you're gonna see like after you make those struggles, like, oh, I get why you were saying it that way because it's kind of like you're not getting molded into something unless you really want to be a part of it. And as long as you're not getting brain casted out, or as long as you're not getting brainwashed, um, then then it's almost like that brand of identity that you're finally building for yourself. Um, is just really understanding how comfortable you are with other people in relation to you. Uh, and then it's like, okay, how are you gonna develop yourself into being somebody that's, um, you know, me particularly, I wouldn't want to step on any other people's toes as well. But it's like, what are you gonna do to hold true to what you actually wanted to say to a person that represented everything that was part of you? Um, and so I would say even to that, it's like you don't have to feel bad if you don't have anything because it will show one day, one night, later on, later on, here, right now, or even showed already many of times. So that's why you gotta like have that in you. That like the surface level is something that I think some people even really enjoy to strengthen of themselves. Which at one point, a lot of people I think um, try to break down the systemic surface level just because it's like I don't know who you are. I don't mess with you. I don't vibe with you. You don't look like it to me. Because strangely, a lot of my peer friend, like people really close to me, are really good at that. Um, so they'll let me know. But strangely as well, it's like it's not the fact that I have to know. It's the fact that it's like it's what God told me to know. Um, so it's like how much does it really matter to you? How much does it really matter to you? And so if something really matters to you, um, I would say don't ever let anybody tell you what to do and how to do it. That's the most important thing that I would tell you in this video. After knowing all of that, after knowing, everyone's going through the same thing, after, and it's really difficult to understand that too. Very difficult to understand how many people are going through the same thing you're going through. But the key is, yes, it's true. Key is, man, there's a lot of people. That's why I always bring up like the 7 billion population, because even if it was 2 billion people in the world, you know how many lives could be of the same to like 30%, 40%. But this is just more like research value and like human output. I think uh I think you got to be able to take on thought process that you know service level is just service level as far as what could be done um, through the maturation of yourself, and then like that one's crazy. That one's crazy. That one's just crazy. But once you get to that prioritization, it's like what is deep down, what is going forth, what is being known to, and what is what makes you get up at night, or what makes you get up in the morning, what makes you figure out that this is what I gotta do this time around as opposed to the next time around, because you know what I mean, because I made a mistake, or you just do better at next time without any mistakes. uh what are prioritizations to you after you eclipse service level, or um you know after you get past all the rushes of really good highs, really good events. um the good part about you, um it's almost like service level. It's almost like prioritization. I mean, what's here? Like what's that light showing you? What is that light showing you? Um, as far as like if you have the primary colors, like are you red, blue, green, whatnot? But then what is your down the line? Is it crystal? Is it white? Is it crystal? Is it whatever you want to call the other colors down the line? So even in that sense, if you do scientific route, where it's clarity, and because it's the formation of all the colors together. Like I don't think there's too much to be scared of if you know yourself very well, and you know other people very well. If you know other people very well, I don't think that's a big deal. Um, as far as like a weighty expectation, I consider it very light. And it's like you know things turn out to be really fruitful. Yeah. Um, so some people would think with the focus on priorities, it's like they'll ask like, "Hey, Chris, if you're so much about God, shouldn't if you're so much about God, shouldn't it be about not sinning, constantly being in God as your main priority?" And so I would say that if you knew God was omnipotent, created everything, coexisted amongst everything, wouldn't it be what can God grace you with as opposed to what you can do for God? That's on my outright. That's on my outright because of my extension that I think my fear for God was really high and then it got antiquated. Um, and then, in circles. Um, but it's like, those things are rationally asked by me, through me, I guess, because I'm asking myself. But um, I do ask that personal question: what can you do for God? That's a very personal question, you know, because heck, man, I could hear a lot of responses like probably that would say, I'm not that kind of person. I just try to do my best and I move on. I see what happens. or I just try to do less sin as much as possible, or I just been trying to do everything as possible, you know, communicate and evangelize, go out in the world, try and do everything. Um, but, I guess you get past that because, well, everyone has meaning to God, right? From with God, shouldn't I feel much better? Shouldn't everything work with me as opposed to my life not going so good and falling apart? Well, if you get past the fact that everyone matters, no matter how special you are, God still accepts everyone that truly believes in Him. That is where I'm trying to get at. You will know when someone is close to God, and it's super refreshing. People are excited to talk about God, about the same old stuff. That's where the new developments happen. Because if you open that brown book, it's the same stuff that you've been through a quadrillion amount of times, but it's in different echelons, and it's in different forms, and it's different volumes, and it's appreciated in different ways. It's consistent in different ways, inconsistent in different ways. It's sought after in different ways. It's prospectively seen in a myriad of different ways, but like sound foundation makes it even more larger because it's like even the imaginatory is like inescapable to trying to understand what it all has out for it. So people that try to sometimes get existential, I like when people talk about this stuff, but people it's like, oh no, it's too much nature, too much, too much channeling the stomach of the beast. Because who are we to say, how big that grandeur is? Yeah, but I like to have that hope. And I like to say that there's a lot of things in there when it comes to an individual looking at the stars, individual looking at the sky, looking at the sun, the moon, and then this blue and green thing that we got that we live on. And you're just like, man, those elements, we capture them. That technology, we actually got that. That verification of identity through intellect, we actually got that. That faith through belief, something super invisible. We actually got that. Um, doing the impossible. Bro, you see that game? You see that game? Which game? Video game, real life game? Bro, you see that person? You see that person? Like, you know what I mean? It's like every dimension is cause for new opportunities and new awakenings, new days. Um, and hey, my energy might not be that. My energy might not be um, accustomed to how I like to customize it every day. Um, but it's getting there. It's sure getting there based off my own progress. Um, but I kind of do wonder when I say based off my own progress, am I really saying that? Or is it the plan of everyone else involved? You know what I mean? It's a tricky but fun situation. No, but um, I don't know. I think it's you know, it's just really a time of thinking about something And while I know maturationally, because I've been through it, while I know the grass is not greener on the other side, if you have more meaningful situations happen to you, I don't want to say your worries are doused, because new happenings can really do that to anyone. But it does really explain the bigger picture in a much more vibrant way. So what I mean by that is like, if you even say you were the loser of a sport or of a game, and you're like, man, I'm doing this wrong. Let me see what that person's doing, and you check it out, you know, and you think like, I got to get back to my old spot. I got to get back to me. I got to get back to doing what I did. Very good answer. But all I'm saying is you shouldn't ever be scared of service level experience as well. Uh, but that prioritization. Man, I got no finish.